Awkward, isn't it? Very awkward. Right, so a Gibson Les Paul, obviously a classic instrument. This example here is a 2002. So I think in terms of the era of stuff where Gibson were building reliably good stuff, I feel like that may be a little bit a step ahead of more recent models. I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you agree with that as a statement or not, or a speculation. You know, between sort of 2008 to 2018, maybe even to today, people's opinions of the Gibson quality control in general is a little bit sketchy, right? Now, I don't play enough Gibsons or know enough about Gibsons to know whether that is actually true or kind of an internet myth that goes around, but in any case, this one seems to be really well made. The fretwork is great, etc. So I feel like this is a good example of a Gibson Les Paul. This is actually one of the guitars that kind of changed my mind on Gibson Les Pauls as well, alongside some Tokai stuff. So this has the 50s neck style, and this is the Revstar, which is the Japanese model. The reason that I'm doing this is because I think of the Revstar as sort of like a good alternative for a Les Paul. So obviously the things that you probably know about a Gibson Les Paul are that in general they're fairly heavy instruments, and in general you have upper fret access issues to some extent, right? Because the heel join is what it is. So obviously that's something you probably already thought about coming to this video anyway. The Revstar kind of solves both of those issues. So first of all, you've got a neck join which is glued in, etc. And I think it extends underneath the neck pickup. I'm not sure if this would be long tenon or not, I don't know. It has a thinner body, so that's part of the reason that the Revstar in general I think is going to weigh a bit less than most examples of a Les Paul. A Les Paul can vary fairly drastically, obviously you probably know that as well. They can range from anywhere between sort of £8.5 is quite light for a Les Paul, 10 to 11 pounds is, you know, you can see those kind of examples fairly often. Anyway, both of these actually have chambered bodies, but I think the Revstar chambering is probably a little bit more advanced. If you take a look at the traditional Gibson chambering, it's kind of just a selection of holes drilled out sort of around where your right hand sits on the guitar. It certainly at least looks to me like the Revstar is the guitar with the more planning that has gone into that chambering rather than just drilling out random holes. It looks like there might have been some kind of experimentation, some science behind it. Other obvious differences, we've got the tailpiece, which this one necessarily I found that with these kinds of tailpieces you get a bit more of a jangly sound, you know, something like a Casino, if you think about that kind of thing as a basis for comparison, whereas, and also you have more string length here, you know, comparatively that kind of tailpiece I think has a slightly less jangly, slightly less bright tone. The neck shape, this Les Paul, given that it's the 50s, is slightly chunkier than the Revstar, but quite a similar feel, and we've got a volute here as well. I'd say that the Revstar though would probably be slightly chunkier than the 60s version of the Les Paul neck. So I've played both this guitar in both kind of styles. The 50s is slightly chunkier. I think possibly this is about 0.81 inches, and I think the 50s kind of ranges starting at about 0.9. So there's not much in it, whereas the Slim I think would be right around the kind of Revstar range. In terms of playability, the frets, given that they're stainless steel, across both the standard and the professional range on the Revstar, which is surprising to me. Quite unusual to see a guitar around that sort of £650 price range with stainless frets, so that's really impressive that they managed to do that. And that also explains why they felt quite similar to me to play when I did get to demo both of them. I may try and get the standard Revstar on the channel as well. If you're interested in seeing that, leave a comment. Comparatively, the Gibson has smaller frets. These are jumbo frets as well, right, on the Revstar. So in terms of playability, I feel like you get a little bit, it's just a little bit fresher feeling to play the Revstar. You know, you don't feel the frets quite as much. They're stainless. It's obviously a newer guitar by about a decade as well, so that's going to play a factor. But in theory, the stainless frets should last longer anyway, right? Considerably longer. The main difference in tone that I can hear between these sets of pickups, obviously these are P90s and these are slash pickups. Certainly when you go to the neck pickup, this retains clarity in a way that the neck humbucker on the Gibson Les Paul does not. Obviously, a more vintage voiced half pickup from a Les Paul might be a bit more. Playability wise, yeah, I think given that this is a good example, I wouldn't necessarily say the Revstar kind of blows it away or anything. I think when it comes to gigging, I quite like the idea of P90s. They're growing on me more and more. The humbuckers, I've gigged these with the Gibson Les Paul. Obviously, they're going to be slightly muddier than a single coil, but also, in theory, quieter as well, as long as there's not a grounding issue on the guitar like I think there may be on this one. But what would I buy? I don't know. I need to defer to your opinion on what kind of the modern Gibson Les Paul might be like out of the box. Out of the box, this Revstar, Japanese made, I can't find any faults with the fretwork at all and plays really beautiful straight away. I don't know if that's a little bit of a gamble with a new Gibson Les Paul or not. What I would say is, like, you get the feel of a Les Paul to play in a lot of ways, but with better upper fret access, kind of like a cross between the Les Paul and an SG. Got a nice body contour there as well. So I feel like the Revstar kind of dances in that gap between the two, whereas the SG I feel has, you know, some of those neck dive things, and also the feel of the guitar when you play an SG, it kind of does feel like you're kind of playing over here a bit in a way that a Les Paul obviously doesn't, because it sits back this way. The Revstar, when you're standing up playing it, to me feels more comfortable, like sort of a lighter Les Paul, like what an SG could be, just doesn't have those same kind of issues of feeling like you're playing over this way. I think for me personally, if I was buying off the shelf and I liked the look of a Revstar, then possibly I think out of the box might be less of a gamble to go with the Revstar. Maybe. Let me know if you're kind of opinion of the Gibson stuff is different to that. I don't particularly rate the passive boost thing as a feature. It's not something I'm going to be using tons of. I like the simplified electronics versus the Les Paul, but you do sacrifice some of those kind of in-between tones. So those are my kind of immediate thoughts after playing them both this morning. I did initially think, am I going to be wanting a Les Paul still now that I've played this Revstar and I'm really enjoying it? I feel like this might get more play time, but still the Gibson Les Paul, I don't know, it's still got a thing that it's doing which is slightly different to any other guitar that I've got. I think in terms of gigging, I'd be more comfortable, I feel, with the Revstar. First of all, the P90 is a little bit more to my kind of taste tonally, and I think they're maybe a little bit more versatile than a humbucker in some ways. Don't kill me for that in the comments. It's just I'm used to playing with single coils more. The comfort of having a guitar that weighs sort of under 8 pounds when you're playing for 2 hours at a time or something could be something that really makes a difference. And the satin neck, especially when you're on a gig which is getting sweaty and stuff, I think would make a nice kind of difference too. And the comfort of the neck, I just think it's got a bunch of refinements that don't take away from the overall kind of thing. The scale length is also the same as Gibson, right? That's kind of my take on it. I think the Revstar is the slightly more refined design. Obviously not as iconic, but I think ideal really for a varied set list and stuff. I think the Revstar's a fairly safe bet. I don't know if a modern Gibson is so much, but there are certain jobs, of course, that the Gibson Les Paul would be perfectly suited towards. So let me know in the comments, do you agree, do you disagree? Do you like the Revstar design? Kind of looks cool, I think, to me. Sort of harkens back to the Yamaha SG, which initially used to be hailed as like the Gibson Les Paul killer, didn't it? I don't know whether that's the case. The body on those is even thicker than a Les Paul, which kind of looks crazy to me.